Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Looking at the Bears and the Panthers. Got a couple best bets I like from this game. Panthers coming in as 4-point dogs. You can still get a 4 hanging around. -3.5 for the Bears if you did want to back them at home. +174 if you think the Panthers can pull off this upset. And a 41-point total. Not that many points expected in this one, although it's better than some of the other poo-poo games this week. Both of these teams playing a lot better over the past couple of weeks. Obviously for the Panthers, since they made that change with Deontae Dalton, they are now 1-1, +4 in the point differential in the last 2 weeks, which is really nice, all things considered the prior 2 weeks, how bad their point differential was. And then for the Bears, they did beat the Rams last week at home, a very beat up Rams team, we should say. And they're +2 on the season now with a couple wins that they did squeak out. I also think there's something to the Bears playing better at home right now. They've had a really strong crowd in both games, and you do see they are 2-0 against the spread when they're playing in their own building. Starting with the Panthers on offense, obviously it's been bad all year. They're 26th in total EPA, so not exactly successful, and their success rate 24th in terms of whichever play they're running, a pass or a run. That said, in the last couple of weeks for this team, playing some not great defenses as far as the Bengals and the Raiders go, they still jumped all the way up to 8th in EPA with Andy Dalton at quarterback, 5th in success rate on all of their plays. And their offensive line has played really well all season. It is 9th in adjusted yards before contact. So they are getting pushed forward for that run game to create some holes. And with the Bears not as good at versus the run on defense, that would be where I expect the Panthers to focus their offense. Now, the Bears are an overall very good defense, overall 5th in EPA so far. So regardless of if you're running or passing, they've been really good and 9th in success rate. That said, you can run on this team. And we saw that with the Rams last week. That was the game plan, was go ahead and make sure you give the ball to Kyren Williams. He got his yards. He got over his carries in that game, which was a very high 18.5. So am looking at Chuba Hubbard to do some really good stuff in this game. And you consider that they haven't gotten much push with their defensive line as they are 23rd in adjusted yards before contact. So the running back on the other team is finding holes and finding space to work with. For the Bears offense, not much to celebrate so far. We know Eberflus and Caleb Williams have not managed to find much. And honestly, DJ Moore is not creating much separation this year, not nearly as much as last year, which is kind of what they were banking on, I'm sure. At the same time, Caleb has a ton of missed throws and open opportunities that he hasn't taken advantage of. So for the other side of the ball, the Panthers not good either. I will say they did a good job of stopping the run in the last couple of weeks, albeit against two very bad running offenses in the Bengals and the Raiders. So you kind of have to take a grain of salt right now. I mean, the Panthers are just losing guys left and right, especially on the defensive line and Shaq Thompson as well now. So stopping the run, going to be a problem for them moving forward for the whole season. We'll see now that they have a slightly more formidable run offense coming up against them. Can they handle business? Either way, I do think the Panthers are a good bet to cover more than a field goal. I just think these teams are actually a lot closer than it meets the eye, especially because the two weakest points of the teams are going to be going up against each other. This Bears offense does not scare you, even against a bad defense like the Panthers. And I think the Panthers are going to be able to move the ball a little bit better than people expect, especially if they just feed Chuba Hubbard. So I would take them +3.5. Quick reminder to go ahead and like the video if you appreciate what you're getting. Subscribe to the page if you don't want to miss any of the videos I've got. Got a couple other NFL with player props and anytime touchdowns out, so make sure you check that stuff out. Also want to make sure that you check the description of the video for the link to the VIP Discord. Make sure you don't miss any of the plays that I'm putting out, as well as the full write-ups and reasoning. Got a nice code in there for 50% off your first month if you want to check that out. Chuba Hubbard kicking off our play of props here, and I think it's got to be another Chuba game, right? It seems a little chalky at this point after 2 weeks of Chuba doing big things, but all we needed was Miles Sanders and Bryce Young to step out of the way so we could allow Chuba to do his thing. All he's done in the last couple of weeks, 39 carries per total, 106 yards per game, 2 tutties, including 1 in the air, and he's caught all 9 of his targets for 9 receptions and a tutty as well. Really solid fantasy player if you haven't picked him up yet. 74% snap share. That's what we're talking about in the last couple of weeks, and a 75% opportunity share. Whereas in the first couple games, it was actually a little bit closer to even with Miles Sanders out there. You can say Sanders is a better receiving back. I don't even know if that's true, but that would be a big reason for why they kept him out there over Chuba when the game was over for the first 2 weeks right away anyway, right? The other thing about this Bears defense, not as good as it was last year against the run. Told you about that a minute ago. But the touchdowns, they have let up 5 running back touchdowns already this season, whereas last year they let up 7 on the entirety of the season. At the end of the day, the underlying metrics show that this offensive line for the Panthers is getting a lot more push forward than the defensive line for the Bears is. Bears ranked 23rd in that adjusted yards before contact, like I mentioned, and this Panthers offense is up at 9th, playing some decent squads on the defensive line, obviously the last 2 weeks notwithstanding. So either way, I think they're going to continue to have some success against the Bears on the ground. Looking at Deontae Johnson, these are the 2 guys on the Carolina Panthers offense, and Deontae is coming in off of 2 of his best weeks of his career with the Red Rifle at quarterback. 13.5 targets in the last 2 weeks with Andy, 7.5 receptions in those games. Only 2 wide receivers have seen 8+ targets against a very stout Bears pass defense this year. That was Nico Collins, who went for 8 receptions on 10 targets, had a $135 in that game. The other one was last week, Jordan Whittingham, 8 targets, 6 receptions and 62 yards for him. So if you are getting there at about a 10-yard average depth of target, right? So you're running your routes at about 10 yards or so, which is right where Deontae is at, then you're in a good position to at least get some receptions versus this Bears defense. I don't really love the yardage, although if he's going to get 6 receptions, because it's mostly at 5.5 now, if you want to take over on his receptions for Deontae, if he's going to get the 6 receptions, I'm okay with him at about 62.5 yards, but I think he's going to have to come back and have slightly shorter routes to have success against an incredibly solid Bears secondary. For the Bears, I really don't like anybody. I got to be honest. I want to take DJ Moore against his old team. I think that's a good revenge narrative. I don't buy into that quite as much in a game where, especially for a wide receiver, where you really need to get the ball in order to be able to move with it. So either way, I am going to look at DeAndre Swift. I still think he's got the lead role. The thing is I don't think it's safe. So he is going to be a stay away for me. So is Roschon Johnson. It's a very similar situation to that Bengals backfield where I just don't know what to do with Chase Brown and Zach Moss. It could go either way, especially within the game script of a game. So if things change where the Bengals need to throw, or in this case, the Bears need to throw, maybe we see a little bit more Roschon Johnson, who is that scat back. If they need to run, they should be leaning on DeAndre Swift. But if he shows some of the lack of vision that he had in the first 3 weeks of the season before busting out last week, then they could be going to the bench a little bit early and bringing Roschon in. So I think you kind of want to stay away from those guys unless you're looking at maybe Roschon reception stuff, because I think the most safe play here is that, or expectation should be that Roschon is going to be the lead receiving back. That's all the time I have for you guys. Make sure you do jump in the description of the video. Get the code if you do want to jump in the VIP Discord for 50% off. Do have a 7-day free trial for that if you want to check it out and see what it's about. If you do want also a 7-day free trial to Outlier.bet, the main tool that I'm using to get all of the information I use to make my plays, we do have a link to a 7-day free trial that's in the description of the video as well. So I'm going to continue along here in the NFL and keep busting out these units until I see y'all next. Happy betting.